Good day to you. Today my talk is on the court cases that go inside our own heart and what speaks in our heart. So the first two tracks to develop while we are in our mother's womb, the first two brain tracks. First one is called empathic intuitive. The baby begins to think how he thinks about himself. Obviously, when mother is bonding and she's interacting with the baby in thought and in other ways, the baby gets a good idea that my mom is thinking much about me. But if the mother is very busy and has no time or thought for the baby, he feels neglected, isolated, doesn't connect, no bonding while in the womb. So in the womb also bonding is so important. So we always tell mom, do infant directed speech at some time during work, take time to think and sing to the child and so on. The second track that develops alongside the first, empathic intuitive, how I think about myself, is empathic relational, how I relate to others. So as time goes on, these two tracks provide the basic IQ potential to develop other tracks of speech, mathematics, management, kinesthetic, acoustic, visual, and so on. All this goes on, and we develop an inside directed speech. That is, we speak to ourselves and we hear from ourselves whether we are acceptable, whether we are pleasing, whether we accuse ourselves, whether we accuse others. So even when a child begins to accuse parents that they are not doing their best, it's a tragic situation, because the child's expectation is that the parents will do the best. So this child has come from the Good Shepherd above. Bit of his spirit is in the child, God's scope is in the child, and his pages are written into his heart scope. So child expects the best, and in many homes they do the best for the child. And even more than the physical factor of providing enough nourishment, providing spiritual soul heart nourishment is keenly felt by the child. So child will get early an understanding, I am well treated or not well treated, I am accepted or rejected. So in fact, when the child feels maternal deprivation syndrome, what troubles mother goes through, child feels, he does not want to come out when he's 40 weeks up. Medically speaking, it's after 40 weeks that the child is full grown. He doesn't want to come out, and that becomes necessary. This is unfortunate. So that's how much, whether the child feels accepted or not. So what was your internal speech inside you when you could understand and came to an age of understanding? So it's at about the age of 12, the child begins to feel for himself, meaning like a separate personality, if all goes well in the home. But if all does not go well in the home, from an earlier age, child begins to fetch for himself whatever he can. Because he has to think like someone else outside, not included. Otherwise, the child includes all family joys as part of his, whatever he gets from parents, he believes it's the best that the parents could do. So this is about the inside speech of a child. The second thing is what we accumulate inside us as wrongdoings, what we have done or what others have done against us. So there is this against kind of thought processes that go on, that was done against me. So when do we get to pass over the thing that was not done against you, but it just happened? So this antagonistic thought pattern begins to develop, that was against me. So you need to be careful in this digital age when you are correcting children, that you don't appear to be against the child, but your improvement. See, we don't call it even correction, we call it improvement. Darling, this is for your improvement. This is so that you might do better. That's the language always to use. It must not appear as if you are punishing, correcting, because it gets written as they are against me. So you do your best to not allow the child that thought to sink in, because very early in digitized world, children begins to get into games where they have to win, the competition, struggle for existence, others are against, and I must win for myself, I must win for my team. So this thing about that was done against me. So by about the age of 12, the war in the soul begins to overcome the hope in the spirit, and the child begins to get very angry, and his expectation increasingly becomes they will not do what is good for me, and then he thinks he has to fetch for himself independently, and his language will speak like that. He will rebel at many things. He will reject to sit at the table. He will want to be in his room all the time, be on the phone all the time, and have a fight with his sibling. That is because this thing about they are against me gets into him early these days. Thirdly, then he carries the burden of how to get it right for me. Everybody is against me, and he uses language like that. I don't care, who cares, I don't want this, I hate this. So that kind of language begins to show you that in his inside there's a process that is going on, that he lives as if in a contrary world. And he puts other people on the dock, and very young he becomes a prosecuting attorney. And if parents also get into this game, then it becomes very bad for the child, because the child will defend himself using whatever rhetoric, semantics he can muster. So he can become sharp teeth like words, and parents must not get hurt, but help him to overcome this sharp teeth like talk, because offense has got into him. He was a child who accepted everything easily. Now she gets offended for the slightest thing, and reaction is one of offense. So we need to respond to this situation proactively. Fourthly, the child begins to feel loss. What he had, he feels a loss, a sense of I lost that. So when you use the word punish and you say you can't have this till 8 p.m., then it sounds like a loss to the child. So what should be done is redeeming. You take the time and be nice and relate, do some things the child likes, till he gets over this language and feeling of I lost, I am denied, I am deprived. So using certain things as a measure of discipline is important. Putting away the digital gadgets for a prescribed time, agree with them, and then you say only for 45 minutes you can have this. Get them to agree with you about what you have put away. Hi Richard, nice to see you. This fourth point is about the sense of loss that comes into them, and they will try to catch up, they will try to please you. So you have to, now adults also do this, but I am saying how it develops in a child, and then you will have an adult also who is always living under the slogan or maxim, perform or perish, swim or sink. He heard it somewhere down the line, either expressly said so, or that's what he gathered the way he's asked questions about his exams, about his level of marks, about his competence. So this thing about loss, and fifthly we come to the shortfall. After that the person begins to relate to life as if he has a shortfall, and he's in a desperate hurry to fill this shortfall. Now we know the language I have used, all this, the better speech is how we get better speech in ourselves, when God would speak to us and say, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. That's how a dad and mom must speak to a child. And when the child falls short of the standard for mathematics, you give him encouragement to improve. So you don't agree with a very poor marking rate, but you have to speak to him improvement, and you set up a process of initiation, navigation, successful conclusion. That's what every math problem, math solution has: initiation, navigation. This is why math is an important subject to get your management tracks right. You have to work with it. So some people can get 90 out of 100 for math easily. Other kids can't get it easily. They keep failing. They should not fail math because math is part of life. That's how we plan and that's how we manage. So we have to set it right for them, take time. And I always tell parents, with patience, teach a subject you can, at least the language. It's a great instrument to coach. Only thing, you have to be patient. You can't be impatient. You have to be patient. If we choose to teach a subject to a child, you have to be patient. So we were looking at this shortfall. I lost it. I have a shortfall. How to catch up. So he can get into all kinds of achievement modes to catch up. So some people in fact may try to catch up with sports for what they lost in studies, or vice versa. So you need to, now I'm moving from kids to adults. Adults also have all these phenomena, thought patterns going on inside them. How am I thinking about myself? Empathic intuitive tract. How am I thinking and relating to others? So the fifth one is feeling far away, feeling excluded. Rather than draw near, you feel far away from parents, in fact far away from the destiny that God has for you. So on the cross of Jesus, he stretched out his hands and drew people to come closer. So the cross phenomenon is an appeal, draw near. His call is draw near, don't be distant, don't be far away. The next thing that comes is, because of disappointments, frustrations, broken promises and perception of broken promises, walls come up even in the inside of a child. Walls of separation from parents, walls of separation from the best expectation, walls of separation from the God scope that God has. So the child will feel, and later on child becomes an adult, you will find a person living in a very restricted space. His smile is restricted, his relationships are restricted, his options are restricted. So for any problem he has only one way solution. Sometimes it is my way is highway kind of thing, but it's a one-way solution. So you are seeing a prisoner of internal confinement. It's like Dr. Manet inside the Bastille. It's a personal Bastille he has got into. This is how I wrote it. I'll read it to you, what I wrote it. Are you walled into an ever-constricting prison cell? When we don't release ourselves from border infiltrations, binds, fallout, judgments, on the dock, prosecutions, indictments, they encroach more and more into our relational space and time until we have less space for life and relationships. Now you will understand I am speaking in a language that all can understand. Those who are no Christian basis can understand. Those who don't agree with Christian basis also can understand and agree with what I am saying. So then we cry out and fight out, hit out helplessly, almost too late, thinking I am getting swallowed up in the walls. Now we won't say in the walls I have built up, but we will say in the walls others erected against me. That's how that thinking comes. Then a little more of this: attend on your prison sentences and judgments you entered and others entered against you sooner than later. So this process we have to enter at some point of time. I told you at the age of 12, the war of the soul in the child overcomes the promise in the spirit he heard in his mother's womb. Promise in the spirit came from God the Father, from whom every good gift comes so that we can move towards perfection. So the life gap is, the life's howling gap is the good gift you feel and the shortfall that you're not getting it, you're not getting there. So the Edenic mandate of be fruitful, multiply, fill and fulfill, steward it for others, begins to howl, and then first there's a growl, there's a howl, there's a scowl. It begins to increase the voice inside us, in the spaces, echoing, reverberating, because they have so many voices have come up. Then at that point we desperately need help. Doctors will diagnose schizophrenia or isolated personality disorders, which are many these days, given the time young people spend on the digital screen, and the relational dysfunctions. Their parents are often not there for them till they get into trouble, then they're dragged to a doctor. So this is my field of research, how to get over these problems that are recently diagnosed as psychiatric without drug therapy, by empathic therapy measures. Yes. I think I have spoken about it. Then the sixth point I want to do is, now we feel alienated, distance, angry. We feel hostility inside us about our losses. We feel hostility about the relationships we have had and they are breaking up. So any new relationship carries a lot of baggage of past failures. So we have moved up from top-down regulation, initiation, navigation, plan, and good reward. So who says good reward? When we successfully come to a conclusion, we look back at it and say, it's a good reward, I feel rewarded. But increasingly we move to that bottom-up regulation, many bad experiences, last hours, bitterness speaking to us through the amygdala, hippocampus and hypothalamus. That's the bottom-up track into which a soldier gets in warfare, which is called a foxhole situation. Bad things repeating and he goes berserk. This happens with the digital screen. This happens with post-traumatic stress disorder. In different circumstances, people are no more thinking empathic, executing a decision. They have become slaves of already made procedures of decision executed by the bottom of the brain through the amygdala, hippocampus and hypothalamus. That's why it's called bottom-up regulation. Past hour playing into the present hour. Past year playing into the present hour. The bad thing, grievous thing happened 1 year ago. You lost your job, someone else took your place, your boss scolded you for the mistake you did. It happened a year ago. But it resounds as if it happened yesterday, and those bad things come in your dreams all the time. So I have done many clips on recovering proper sleep, recovering proper dreams. I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis. If you want any of these clips, please send me a WhatsApp number to +94 74 211 5011. If you are in Sri Lanka, what you have to send to is 074 211 5011. I also have an app, Golden Nuggets, Dr. Lalith Mendis, and it is available for free download with all my clips, spiritual as well as scientific. So you have to choose from one digital gadget, either the reason one or the spiritual option. There is an option called Science and Reason, or the spiritual one. Each digital gadget can have one. So Golden Nuggets, it's available from Google and from App Store. That is to get connected to parallel subjects I have handled besides the subject I am handling today. My own history is that I was raised up in an atheistic home. My father was a well-known atheist, so by the time I was studying for A-level at St. Thomas's College, Sri Lanka, I was an atheist, and Darwin and what I learned from evolution made me quite confirmed in my father's beliefs. Then it so happened that I became first in the island in that examination many moons ago in 1970. Then I entered medical faculty, and every exam in the Colombo medical faculty I was batch top. By the time I had entered medical faculty, a change in my thinking had come, because I found that nobody else could have any opinion. My opinion was the last one on any subject, because I had accumulated vast amounts of knowledge on different subjects, and my hobby was reading dictionaries of science. I did not need relationships. I could just shut up myself in my room and just read books, and I surrounded myself with books. I never stepped out of my room. My parents always knew I was studying. They really respected my studying ability, but I was just surrounded with books. I go to sleep with a book in my lap, and I wake up somewhere down the line still with the book in my lap. That's how addicted I was to knowledge. I want to thank God. A chess playing friend, a chap called Tony, got into argument with me about this Good Shepherd being true, and through the process of argument, he never got intimidated with my great brain. He always challenged me, answered my questions with equanimity, questions that I asked with great gusto and arrogance and pride, very condescending. And he told me to read this book called John's Gospel. I did not know what gospel was. After 13 years in a Christian school, I did not know the word gospel. John I might have heard. So he said the first book of the Bible is Genesis. I did not know that. So I read both to argue with him. Arguing, I found the first chapter of Genesis is quite scientific, but I still argued. I was an argument addict. I had to prove the point to anybody that I had knowledge about the subject under discussion more than that fellow. So I argued. Then I came to the 8th chapter of John's Gospel. It was about a woman caught in the act of adultery and being stoned to death, according to the punishment of that country. When I was reading this, the Good Shepherd, who was the center person of the story, told the detractors, "He who has no sin cast the first stone." When he said that, it struck a chord in my inside, and something told me, that's your problem. You always have a stone in your mouth whenever you start a conversation, and you don't know how you wound others, even your friends. I was surprised who's giving me this diagnosis, because my teacher said, my parents said, good, very good, decent fellow, and of course top of the batch. And I was surprised, who knows me like this, that I always start a argument. I don't start conversations, I start arguments, and I have to win it, hook or by crook, and I have enough knowledge to win it. I was surprised that I was diagnosed like this, and I shook a little, realizing that I didn't have friends. I only had diatribe. I only had debaters who I get them to debate some topic. So when I next met for chess with my friend Tony, I was a little silent. I was quite shaken. He said, "Why are you silent? Where are your questions?" He was never scared of my big brain. I said, "It's like this. I was reading this story. Do you know it?" And this person, as if he popped out of the book and said, "This is your problem. You have always a stone in your mouth." And somehow, contrariness had got into my inside. Maybe because my father was a political activist, he was a maths teacher, well-known person in his area. I really emulated him. I was very appreciative of him. And he picks up arguments very easily, so I picked up arguments even more easily. Then I told Tony, this person got in my inside and said to me, "You always have a stone in your mouth. How can that be? This person is dead." Then Tony said, "No, he's living." I said, "No, he's dead. I am from a township where Good Friday they wear black. All my cousins and uncles go to church wearing black, and even they do the passion play where some out of pulp figure is made and he's put on a cross, and all kinds of things are done. Of course, my father was an atheist and we never went to church. Then Tony said, however, this Christ is alive, that's how he can talk to you, and that day is called Easter. I said, Easter I know. All my cousins get drunk, my uncles get drunk. He said, my friend said, I'm sorry about that, but Easter is when Christians remember that Christ came back to life. Normally I would have hooted, shouted, jeered, but this person I had met in a strange reading of a book, and he told me, this is your problem. There is a stone in your mouth. And that's the day I changed. I asked him to come into my insides, and there was a very palpable change. I found my brain got quiet. I found there's another person, like a little child. I did not know to call it heart. I found there's another place where there is a very undeveloped fighter, he only knows to wield the sword of knowledge. That day I changed, and I'm thankful for that. So I have diverted a little from this business of reconciliation, because we have gone so far out and feel alienated from the Good Shepherd who wants to walk with us. Formerly alienated, hostile in minds, and then hostility of the mind will manifest as contrary deeds. So this was where I changed. So I have put down 7 things, like as if we are in the dock and we make others also. We become the prosecuting counsel and bring a court case in our arguments or in our thoughts, and this needs to come to rest. So the cross was the place everybody's barbs, nails, whiplashes came on one person, the Good Shepherd. So the cross was a court, and the prosecuting counsel was all what we had done against each other. That came on him. And he didn't defend himself. He absorbed the punishment we prescribed in our arguments and things we did against others. All that came upon him. The cross was a courthouse, very peculiar one, hanging between 2 pieces of timber, but the one who was on the dock became the defending attorney, defending the fellows who was doing this to him. So he said, Father, forgive them. And he continued with that till he said, it is finished. I have faced up to all the accusations, all the diatribes, all the vilifications and the nasty things. So if you have wondered why such a good person went through such a brutal thing called the cross of Calvary, all the brutality humans do, it's not only politicians who do brutality, but doctors do, lawyers do, accountants do, engineers also I'm sure must be doing. So all that came on him. And he concluded by saying, Father, forgive, it is finished. All that is necessary to bring any man's court case, indictments, shortfall, he paid it in full. How do you know this? One, if you get a little quiet and see what the internal conversation is, there will be at least 50% of your internal conversation. Who did what against you? How you could do much better than where you are now. Though you may be well achieved, though you are well achieved, what speaks is not the achievement, but what could not be achieved. Check your conscience. Though outwardly we would have a CV, we would have many degrees behind our name, we will be presented in academic fora saying so and so well qualified, we would agree with it, but in our inside there's another speech goes on about the shortfall, about the hurt, about the disappointment, about the humiliation, about the fears. That's where we can say, come into my heart, Good Shepherd, and let this stony process stop, and let there be peace for me also. I think I have spoken enough today about on the dock insides and how we can come to reconciliation and look forward to the destiny that our Good Shepherd has for us. Thank you for listening. We will meet again some other time, usually on Saturdays that I do this talk at 11 a.m. But this Saturday I'm occupied at 11 a.m. That's why I had to do it this odd afternoon. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for friends from overseas. Thank you.